Bitcoin is going to zero. You've heard this scary prediction for 15 years repeated confidently by some of the smartest people around. Paul Krugman, a famous economist, said it in the New York Times back in 2013. Warren Buffett, the legendary investor, called it rat poison squared in 2018. Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, called it a fraud in 2017. Another well-known economist, Roubini, called it the mother of all scams. Then there's my personal favorite, Schiff. He's been predicting Bitcoin's end since 2011, and more recently, actor Ben McKenzie released a book in 2023 and produced a documentary in 2025, calling it the biggest pyramid scheme ever. Every one of these predictions has been wrong about the price, wrong about Bitcoin surviving, and of course they were wrong about people actually using it. But here's what most people in the crypto world won't admit. Some of these critics weren't entirely wrong, some of their arguments deserve a serious look, and one version of the pessimistic case, which barely anyone dares to mention, could actually still happen. My name is DC, and you're watching The Coin Bureau. A website called Bitcoin Obituaries has been keeping track of every public statement declaring Bitcoin dead since 2010. The count is now up to 477 separate funerals. Each prediction came from an expert, a major news source, a respected economist, or a famous investor. And each one has been wrong, costing people money who listened, while the asset itself has grown from about 7 cents in 2010 to roughly $80,000 today, with an all-time high of over $126,000 in 2025. Now, the attacks come in waves. The first set of put-downs happened between 2010 and 2013, when Bitcoin was only interesting to tech people and libertarians. The second wave hit right after the Mt. Gox exchange collapsed in 2014, when about 850,000 BTC vanished and everyone agreed the experiment was over. Then the third wave came in 2018 after the frenzy over ICOs ended and prices crashed from almost $20,000 to around $3,200. The fourth wave arrived in 2022 after major companies like Terra, Celsius, and FTX collapsed in 1 year. And it seems as if we are experiencing another wave just now. Simply put, this prediction that Bitcoin will fail is the longest running major financial guess in the modern world. And it has the absolute worst track record of any prediction in any market ever recorded. Now, the interesting question is not if the critics were wrong, the price proves that. The interesting question is why they were wrong, because most of them are arguably very smart people using financial rules that worked well for every other type of asset in history. And this brings us to the first serious criticism, the Economists' view. This was led by Paul Krugman's 2013 article calling Bitcoin a bubble. This view was backed up by many academics who argued Bitcoin had no real value, couldn't work as a form of payment because its price was too volatile and could never handle the volume of a real payment system. You might think that argument was just wrong on the facts, but that misses the point. Krugman was right that Bitcoin is bad for buying coffee every day. In fact, it's terrible for buying coffee every day. And he was right that its basic speed can compare with Visa. What he got wrong was the category. Bitcoin's real use ended up being totally different from what currency experts were comparing it to. It became a store of value that no government controls and a global system for settling large amounts of money, not a daily spending tool. The idea wasn't wrong. The tool used to measure it was. The same mistake appeared in the second wave of criticism from the value investing world, where people like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger argued that an asset that doesn't produce any income can't be worth anything in the long run. Munger went even further, calling the whole thing stupid and evil. The truth is that the method of valuing an asset based on its future cash flows works perfectly for company stocks, but it totally fails for monetary assets. Gold, for example, produces no cash flows at all, yet it has been considered money for about 5,000 years. Bitcoin is the digital version of that same idea, of a monetary premium. And if you apply the rules for valuing stocks to it, you will always conclude it's worthless. The mistake was the framework, not the conclusion that followed from it. Before we move on, the speed of this story is why the Coin Bureau Telegram channel is so important. This is where we share the latest breaking news, provide deep dive alpha, and give you the most important market updates straight to your phone. It's completely free to join. The link is in the description below, or you can scan the QR code currently displayed on your screen. It's genuinely worth it. Okay, right back to it. The third wave, the fraud idea, was pushed hardest by Jamie Dimon and Nouriel Roubini. Dimon called Bitcoin a fraud in 2017 and famously said any of his traders caught using it would be fired. Roubini told the Senate the entire crypto world was the mother of all scams. And this is where we have to be honest, because they were partly right. The industry has had a lot of real fraud, including the collapses of FTX, Celsius, Terra, BlockFi, Voyager, and dozens of smaller failures that destroyed billions of dollars of regular people's savings. However, that doesn't mean the core technology is invalid. During the early days of the internet, we experienced something similar. The early American stock market had so much fraud that the entire Securities and Exchange Commission had to be created to stop it. The cycle of fraud has consistently gotten rid of bad players while the core network of Bitcoin has kept growing. Dimon and Roubini mixed up the dishonest crypto industry with the honest Bitcoin protocol based on rules and code. Bitcoin itself has never been successfully attacked at its core, has never gone offline for a meaningful time, and processed every single transaction during every collapse they predicted would kill it. Now, the most recent and loudest wave is the Ponzi scheme argument championed by Peter Schiff since 2011 and reignited by Ben McKenzie just recently. The argument is that Bitcoin's price only goes up because new buyers have to keep coming in to pay off the existing holders. At first, this sounds rather convincing on a podcast, but it doesn't hold up to the actual definition. A Ponzi scheme requires a central person or group promising specific returns to participants. Bitcoin has no operator, no promised returns, and no central party making any commitment to anyone. Returns happen because of market demand. Plus, if you applied the same Ponzi accusation honestly, you would have to say the same about gold, stocks, real estate, Pokemon cards, fine art, and every other asset that goes up in value because more people use it and adopt it rather than from contractual income. It's a clever way to talk about it, but it's not the structural definition. And this is why the entire 15-year record of failed predictions starts to make sense. Every wave of criticism shares the same basic mistake. Critics constantly underestimated three things. First, they underestimated how durable the network is, assuming any major hack, new law, or market crash would end it. But the network has survived every single one of them, including China's complete ban on Bitcoin mining in 2021, which removed about 70% of the global computing power overnight without missing a single block. Second, they underestimate how widely it would be adopted, assuming Bitcoin would only ever be for fringe groups and criminals. Instead, it has been picked up by major government wealth funds, public companies holding it on their balance sheets, asset managers running spot ETF products, and, most surprisingly, the United States Indo-Pacific Command, which confirmed in 2026 that it runs a Bitcoin node as part of its defense infrastructure. Third, they underestimated the idea of a monetary premium itself, applying the rules for valuing stocks to a monetary asset and concluding it had no value when monetary assets are valued completely differently. You see, the critics are everything but dumb. They are simply measuring with the wrong tools. And here's the part that almost no one is willing to say out loud. The real long-term risks to Bitcoin are not the ones Krugman, Buffett, Dimon, Schiff, or Ben McKenzie ever talked about. They are focused on three areas that serious crypto investors are actually worried about. The first is coordinated bans by governments, often pushed by global financial groups like FATF, like the rules South Africa is currently making. The draft regulations published by South Africa's Treasury in April 2026 reclassify crypto as capital, give authorities the power to force people to hand over private keys, and propose fines of up to 1 million rand and 5 years in jail for not following those rules. If enough major countries adopt this type of rule, the ability to resist government control starts to weaken through the legal system rather than a tech hack. The protocol doesn't need to be broken, it just needs to be made illegal to access without proving your identity. And 99 countries have already passed a related travel rule legislation. The infrastructure is being built right now. The second risk is the long-term question of the security budget. The amount of new Bitcoin created per block is cut in half every 4 years. At the current rate of 3.125 BTC per block, miners make about $250,000 per block, or roughly $35 million in daily revenue. However, the transaction fees that users pay dropped to less than 1% of the miners' total income in late April. If fees don't increase enough to replace the subsidy as it continues to halve in 2028, 32, 36, and beyond, the security budget that protects the network gets weaker with every cycle, and there's no agreed upon solution for this problem yet. And the third risk is quantum computing. Google's work in 2024 validated the necessary assumptions for quantum error correction, and a March 2026 paper from Google Quantum AI estimated that breaking the type of cryptography Bitcoin uses, which are elliptic curve signatures, might require fewer than 500,000 physical qubits, which is about 20 times less than prior estimates. Approximately 25% of all Bitcoin is held in addresses where the public key is exposed and would be vulnerable to a powerful enough quantum computer. A proposal called BIP360 was added to the official Bitcoin Improvement Proposal repository in February to create a plan for a quantum-resistant upgrade. But the politics of forcing old-school hodlers to move their coins, including the roughly 1.1 million BTC linked to Satoshi, are totally unresolved. Of course, none of these three risks guarantees Bitcoin goes to zero, but all of them are far more believable than anything public critics have ever argued. And the honest investor takes them seriously, watches them, and adjusts their confidence accordingly. So here's the question that really matters. Will Bitcoin's adoption by big institutions and governments keep growing faster than the slow decay of people being able to hold their own keys without government oversight, allowing the network to become stronger through its legitimacy? Or will the combination of government checkpoints, an uncertain security budget path, and a quickly approaching quantum timeline ultimately hold the asset back in ways that 15 years of critics using stock market frameworks completely failed to see? Please get highly opinionated in the comments below, because this is the debate that actually matters for anyone holding Bitcoin into the next decade. If you want to understand exactly how the FATF travel rule is being woven into the OECD crypto asset reporting framework that started in South Africa and how that system is now spreading across the G20 countries, then you should definitely check out our deep dive video right over here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. This is DC signing off.